Good morning, everyone. This is Kieran O'D, and I'm one of the partners here at H2R CPA and also the head of our PPP loans team. At H2R, we've been helping our clients navigate different aspects of the stimulus bills, and I wanted to spend a few moments today talking about some common questions and misconceptions that we're getting and just give a general update on where we are with the PPP loan program. So, as everyone's aware, the recently passed stimulus bill reopened the PPP loan program. It's not necessarily a second PPP loan program. What is available is a second draw of the loan, but it's also a first-time PPP loan for anyone that didn't get one the last time. First-time borrowers are eligible to apply for a PPP loan now that the program is reinstated. And I'd like to talk briefly about PPP round one before we move on to the new program. So for PPP round one, as I said, first-time borrowers are now eligible to apply. For anyone that applied and then found out that the rules changed or that they misrepresented something on their application and they could have gotten more money, they can go back and reapply. So you can reopen that first loan if at the time you filled out your form, you weren't sure what costs were supposed to be put on there and you didn't put all the costs you were entitled to, you're able to actually amend your first PPP loan and get the additional amount. We've also expanded the definition of what's covered for forgiveness. You still have to spend at least 60% on the payroll, but the other expenses that are eligible for forgiveness deduction have now been greatly expanded. So if you didn't apply for forgiveness yet, these new forgiveness rules apply to both the unforgiven first PPP loan and the second PPP loan. One of the other changes to the first PPP loan program was the simplified forgiveness application that was available for people at loans under $50,000. That limit has been raised to $150,000. So if your loan was less than $150,000, you're now eligible to file the simplified form. That's not out yet. And I think what we're also seeing is most banks now, because they're working on how to get the second round out, have actually taken down their forgiveness portals. So on many of the banks that we're seeing right now, you can't even necessarily apply for forgiveness for the first loan. So those are the major changes to the first PPP loan. In addition, they've added a second draw PPP loan. So for any borrowers that got a first PPP loan that suffered 25% or more decrease in gross sales, gross receipts, whatever you want to call the income line, it's a little confusing the way they have the words written. But if you had a gross 25% decrease quarter over quarter compared to 19 to 20 in any quarter, you're eligible for the second draw loan. The second draw loan will be very similar to the first loan you got, and it will be 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. You're actually even allowed to look at the same periods. So you'll be using a lot of the same reports to calculate this. That'll make it a little easier. Second draw loan is for smaller companies. You have to be under 300 employees, and they gave special consideration to restaurants and other hospitality industries with the NICS code of 72, and they're going to be able to get 3.5 times their payroll. The covered period has also changed from, it used to be 8 weeks or 24 weeks. Now it can be anywhere between 8 and 24 weeks. Some of the misconceptions around when you could apply for the second loan is, hey, do I have to have my first loan forgiven? And the answer to that is no. What it says is that you have to use or have used all the money, all the proceeds from the first loan before you can apply for the second loan. Now, if you read into that, it doesn't necessarily say that those expenses need to all be forgiven, but they have to be used on qualified expenses. So long as you got the proceeds from the first loan, use them for qualified expenses, and had a 25% decrease in sales, you're eligible to apply for the second loan if you're under the 300 employee count. The second loan, again, you'll be able to use a lot of the same information as the first loan. So the banks, when they're able to accept these loans, and today is Thursday, January 14th. So as of the recording of this, we just found out that starting next Tuesday, all banks will be able to accept PPP round 2 applications. So for this week, it was just the community and small banks. They've gotten through that process. Next week, it will be open to everyone. At this point, we think it's probably going to be easiest to stay with the bank that you're at, even if you're having some trouble connecting with them, because they already have your information. Once next Tuesday comes around, by then, hopefully we'll have some more information and it'll really be turning on a light switch and opening these portals. The portals are already built. The forms are in there. I think what they're doing is waiting to see these last couple forms and make some changes. And then by next Tuesday, I'm hopeful that this will be a pretty easy process. You have already submitted most of your payroll data. You won't have to give them any of that. At this point, if your loan is over $150,000, when you apply for the second loan, you were going to have to substantiate your decrease in sales. So the only additional documentation that you'd be required to provide to the bank at that point is to substantiate that decrease. You're going to have to work with the bank as to what they're willing to accept there. It says tax returns, internal statements, but if you're looking at a quarter-over-quarter sales decrease, there's really not tax returns that you're going to be able to point that to. So if you're a QuickBooks user, are they going to accept QuickBooks P&L for a couple months? My feeling is yes. So long as you have internal statements that you can give them, they will be able to process these loans fairly quickly. So in general, today's topic wasn't to get into any of the details or specifics of your situation. If you have those, I encourage you to reach out to your connection at H2R CPA, and we can help you figure out how you fit into these boxes. But that's kind of where we are with the programs now, and just wanted to get everybody an update on some of these questions that we're getting around logistics and other things. Thank you all very much, and as more information becomes available, I'm sure we'll be sharing it with clients and everyone else. I look forward to seeing you all and servicing you in the future.